You guys know that we're doing something pretty ridiculously crazy. So we're extending the boat by 4 feet to this transom, to the stern.
We've got big plans for the small boat. We're learning as we go. So come along, we'll teach you stuff as we go building Windpuff.
There's two types of boat building channels. There's the ones that are building a boat for the sake of building the boat. And they'll build the boat like in immaculate, perfect, like just the ideal way that you want to do it. And they're going to do that for a very long time because the correct way is also the slow way. There's the other type of YouTube channels that are building boats where they're going cruising and they're going to build it to go cruising, which means get it done. So in my case, I have a 5-year timeline to get this boat finished. We are 2 years into it because the plan is when the kids are 5 and 3, go sailing on it. Right now the kids are 0 and 2, so I got 3 years left to finish this build. I am nowhere near done, which means I gotta work faster because I gotta get this over with. So the idea would be strip everything off, build up the bulwarks. Since we're using PVC as the core material, we then need to use epoxy. But epoxy's problem is that it doesn't let polyester stick to it very well. It'll stick to polyester, but polyester has trouble sticking to it. So if we build it in epoxy, everything that then attaches to this later needs to also be an epoxy. And when you're doing big projects, epoxy is very difficult to work with. If you're doing a small repair, epoxy is great. If you're doing something massive, you want to be using polyester. That's the dilemma. There's the right way and then there's the realistic way. Now, a thing that I love about using the Totalboat products is not only are they easy to work with, but your tech support is amazing. So I emailed the guys over at Totalboat and sent them pictures. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What and how should I be going about this? And they'll tell you the ideal, but then they'll also tell you the what you can get away with doing route. The ideal, as they said, was strip out all the old, build it all new, and use epoxy since we're using PVC board, or polyester over marine coring material, which is incredibly expensive, which is why we're not doing that. So with the PVC board, the issue is that the epoxy will stick to it at a marine grade rate. Like you can build a boat doing that method. Polyester is going to stick to it, but not that well. So I've done testing and I laminated it up and I could not separate it. But me pulling is not the same as the ocean smashing and pulling. What the engineers at Totalboat were telling me is that the PVC board is going to act as a mold for the polyester and the fiberglass we're going to put around it. So when we're designing it and calculating what it needs to be, we're going to ignore the PVC board that's in there, and we're pretty much going to be building a solid glass piece with this like hollow form inside of it. And that hollow form is going to be the PVC board. So it'll be there as a backing plate when we're through bolting stuff, but it's not going to be a structural component of the bulwarks. That brings us to the issue of the teak. They highly suggest taking the teak out because the problem is the teak's going to get old and it's going to rot in there and it's going to turn to mulch. So where there is teak now is going to become mush, and mush is worthless. So I gave it a try. I gave it an honest, serious try. I got a multi-tool with a super sharp carbide blade to cut through stainless steel, and I was cutting those deck bolts that go through the tower. I was cutting them off for a couple days. Didn't get many done. They are incredibly hard to do. I watched a Project Farmhouse video to find what is the fastest cutting blade for stainless steel screws. I bought 10 of them. I chopped away. I went through 2 of them. I got about 8 feet done. So being how I have 60 feet to do, we're done here. That brings us to what the conversation continued with the Totalboat engineers. Resin up the teak. That way it'll be sealed and hopefully won't rot as fast, but we know that it's going to rot eventually. And then fair it up, just ignore that it exists. It'll become part of the hollow core form that we're going to be using, and we're just going to glass the heck out of everything around it. So that's that's where we are. So I did give it an honest try to rip out the old teak, which is in really bad shape. Like when I was pulling it out, I'm like, it really does need to go. But we're not going to be taking it all off because it's just way too much. So our next project will be to say, screw it all and start glassing over it. It's not the ideal. It is very far from the ideal, which is why we then need to overbuild it with the fiberglass to make it strong enough to support all these forces all on their own. So I'm going to be shooting for about a 1/4 inch thick fiberglass on either side of the bulwarks. So it's going to be a hefty bugger. And the goal there is that it's so strong that it doesn't need the core inside. So it'll just be, you know, giant thick fiberglass wrapping around the sucker. Gave it an honest try, failed miserably. My hands are just, they're still vibrating from holding that saw, which gets very hot, by the way. And now we're just giving up all hope. So yeah, that's where we are. Welcome to my workshop. Okay, so what we're going to be doing right now is really simple. We're going to be putting putty to fill in the gap between where the PVC board comes down to and where the wood toe rail is. So we're going to fill in that gap. There's some areas where the gap is sizable, you could say. So we're actually going to be putting in a little 1x2 molding in there, a little piece of PVC to, you know, fill in that void. That way we don't have to use so much filler. And then after that's on, then we're going to cover the whole thing in a thin strip of 1708, just a single strip. We're going to wet that on and then just let it cure. So that's going to tab the inside of the bulwark to the deck, roughly. Once that's on, then we no longer need the deck to be, or we no longer need the bulwark supported by those strong ties that we have screwed to the outside of the hull. So then we can take those off, and then we can do the same on the outside. We can fill it with putty, and then we can lay one nice long single, like continuous strip of 1708 down the whole length of the boat, and, you know, tab it on with that. Once it's tabbed on and it's, you know, attached on the inside and attached on the outside, then we can determine where our shear line's going to be, take a circular saw and cut the top off to give it a nice gentle curve. That way it flows with the lines of the boat. After all of that is done, then we repeat the same process on the other side of the boat, because that's how boats work. Gotta have that symmetry. Once the bulwark is, you know, attached and secured and good enough right now, then what we're gonna do is build a tent over the whole boat. That way we can go stripping the deck off and just tear the boat apart and go rebuilding the whole thing from the ground up. And then we'll be inside a tent, so we don't have to worry about weather. It'll be a little greenhouse, so it'll be plenty warm in the winter. We can set up good lights. Like, we can literally make it the working environment that we've needed to have to get this project finished. So that's where we are. But it all starts with tapping on the inside of the bulwark. Okay, so we got the port side inside bulwark section tabbed on lightly. Now, if you guys are looking at that and screaming at the screen saying, oh my God, that's not structural. Yes, I know that. It's temporary. So once we get the tent on the boat, then what we're going to be doing is actually glassing the bulwark onto the deck. Like, it's all going to be one giant contiguous piece. So the thing is, I need to get to that point, and in order to do so, we need to do that. So it's just tabbed on, and crazy enough, it is incredibly robust. When I push on it now, it doesn't really budge. Where the other side that doesn't have any glass of any form, it wiggles all over the place. So the next step is to take off the outside of it. So take off all those screws that we put onto the outside of the boat, because those are cheapy bulk packs from Home Depot. So you know they're gonna start pouring rust any second. So we're gonna pull those off, and then we're going to do a similar thing. We're just gonna fill it with putty, and then we're going to cover it with a layer of 1708, and that's it. Then it'll be tabbed on, sort of. It'll be tabbed on enough that it can then support the tent that we're gonna build. That way we can then cover the whole boat, keep it protected from the elements, and really tear into everything. Because right now I have to keep the boat ready for rain. So looking here, you're gonna notice that there's no tabbing onto the deck. It just comes down and stops flush. So it's really barely holding on. But that makes it really stiff anyway. Like it doesn't wiggle like it used to. So it's impressive what just a tiny amount of this stuff can do. Now obviously, if we went out in the ocean with it tabbed on just like that, it's gonna fall off because it's barely attached. Now, as we go working on the deck, once it's covered up, we're gonna strip everything off, and then we're gonna glass everything together. It's gonna be one giant solid piece of fiberglass running over the whole deck. Hey guys, just a little PSA while the subject's happening on why we're not putting a furler on Windpuff, and why I'm actually taking the furler off of Windpuff. That can happen. If you have Hank-on sails and you drop them to the deck and you lash them down, they will never come unfurled in a storm. I guarantee it. Now if you have roller furling, they could. It's always a risk. With that, we have the bulwark tabbed on the outside with filler put in, so that way it's a nice flush transition from PVC to the original hull. And it goes all the way from the stem all the way back to just like right before the cockpit. So the next time I'm going to come out and finish up that last part going from the cockpit all the way to the end of the transom extension. That's going to be a big piece there with a lot of creativity involved in getting it all to blend in accordingly. Now, once we have the port side done, then I get to start doing all this on the starboard side. And once that's done, then we can take the mast down and build the tent. So it's coming. It's coming along very nicely and quickly. And I'm so happy to see the progress happening at an appreciable rate now. And it's also really nice when you're working with nice materials that everything just flows and works easily. So it's many nice things all together. Also on all these gorgeous fall nights that are cool, but not too cold, not too hot. It's just, everything's just been perfect. I'm so happy with it all.
Thanks for watching this episode of Sailing Wisdom. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Rigging Doctor episode. And if you're interested in even more Rigging Doctor awesomeness, consider becoming a patron to see all of our extras. Can't wait to see you next time as you join us out here on the high seas.